Hi, we're going to go over today what we consider a field cut for an English setter. I remember when I first started doing this and clipping my own dogs, it was, certainly a time saver or a money saver, and I could do it as much and when I wanted to, but it is definitely a learning curve. So I've gotten to the point where I do a decent job, a good field cut, but probably not a professional, but for most of us who hunt the dogs, they just want a good, clean field cut to cut down on burrs or, tracking the mud in and snow in the winter with the paws, and just to neaten up usually right around the head and around the tail. So it also depends on the dog's coat. So for Jersey here, she's got a really minimal coat, what I consider, which I like because I can do it really quick. I have my older English setter has more of a show coat, which takes a lot more time, and usually I trim her whole back and feathers and everything down here before the season. But with Jersey, she's pretty simple, so we typically we're going to trim her head to neaten it up to get rid of this flyaway. That's just a personal preference. Neaten up around the ears, do the top third here, and then I just usually go right down and fade into her neck. If you can see her back, she doesn't have a real heavy coat in the back. She doesn't have a lot of fringe here, which is perfect for hunting, and she's got nice feathers on her legs. And I also like to neaten up the feet here, so that just helps cut down on stuff. But I'll show you how to do that. What I don't like to do, and I learned that you don't want to cut right before the season too short in the pads, because it exposes it, especially if their pads aren't real tough, it exposes it to wear, and there's no protection if you cut the fur off too much. So anyway, some people don't cut the feet or the ears, but I like to, and I also like to just trim the tail up a little bit. She doesn't have an overly excessive feathers on her tail, so I just trim it up here to make her look balanced and clean up around the butt plate here. So Jersey's 2 years old, so she's just learned to be good, but she's getting there. So one of the things, as in anything, having the proper tools, I think, you go with the Pro for about 130 bucks. You can get a decent, this is an Oster with the blades. The combs on them doesn't work very good that I find. So I'm using a 10. I like to use a 10, get it down short, and usually it might look choppy in the beginning, but in about a week it'll fade in and look real nice. So I usually start right up here and just take off the little excess, the top here. Good girl, Jersey. Go down here. Top of the ears. And usually what you're doing is you're just, depending on the dog, you're just going to take the top third, clip the top third of the ear, all around the top here, underneath. Want to clip in there, clean up the ears. So, and you always want to go pull towards you, and you never want to go on the other side. So you always want to have it right in front of you here. So just flip it up here. And they're hunting dogs, so they're not show dogs. So if you make a little mistake, good news, it'll grow back in. But in the early season, I think it cuts down on getting some of that excess fur off. Just cuts down on the heat, and it certainly cuts down on the mess and tangles and all that good stuff. I usually do it right before the beginning of October, before the first trip, and I'm usually good through grouse season, and maybe I'll have to do them once in March or whatever, or January if I really want to. So that's how you do the ears, and then I do up underneath. I usually take down around the underneath here. Fade that in a little bit. You can see, just getting in here. You always want to go with the fur. So kind of follow the fur. areas where the fur curves, you want to kind of do that. So another thing you want to do is when you buy this, the clipper, you don't have one, get the Cool Lube, the lubricant, and it keeps it cool and also clean and lubes. You do that once in a while, and then there you go. Take this off. So you can see I just made a makeshift bench here. Usually the setters are pretty cooperative after they're thrown out of their puppy. So I'll fade just along the neck here. But she doesn't really have, like I said, a heavy coat, so there we go. Yep. Clean it up. That's one side. And there's you here. Come here. Come here, girl. Good girl. And then usually after the lube, I find it clogs up, so I have the brush handy. And do the other side. There you go. Hey, all right. Oh, also important is make sure you give them a bath, like, and dry them really good so they're dry. Get all the oils out of their, fur before you do this. I find it goes so much better. Also, brush them out before that. So. Same as the other side, just you go against the grain on the, under the ear. I do it sometimes just to get it real short. Yeah, and for the most part, just cleaning it up, making them look nice, but also it's nice to have them early season, less fur, they dry quicker if it's wet out. And usually if you do it by the beginning of October, by the time the cold weather really comes in, depending on where you live, you got a nice, ample coat for the season. And you can go over it if you have to, if you got a little chop and you really like it nice. You want to sit, girl? Okay, that's allowed. Good girl, Casey. This trimmer has 2 speeds. I tend to just use the lower speed because they don't have a real thick coat, and I think it cuts down on the wear and tear of the blade. Stays cooler, and again, it cuts fast enough. So let's see how she looks here. So see her head. So. Looks good, right? Cleaned it up around here. Nice. I like to leave the ears long. If your dog has excessively long or it gets tangled up, you might have to trim that with the scissors. But she looks pretty good. Yeah, okay. So we're gonna do her paws next. Okay, over here. After I cut the nails, I usually want to get this first. So I take a brush out this, and brush this back. Again, good set of really good shears. And just basically take the top off. Trim that up. All right. Depends on how much fur they have, but that's pretty much that. Here, girl. And then on this side, on the bottom, usually, and I'll take the clippers, and on this I have a 30 blade, so that's really close. And I'll take that and I'll get this side, and if you can see, first thing I do is I take right here, I want to cut a little bit above the pad, okay? And then the pad goes like a V here, so I go once here, once here, once here. I like to leave a little fur in there in the beginning of the season. Okay, she's getting a little antsy. But, and then take this off of here. That's pretty much it. Sometimes they get a little bit that grows like that. It'll fly up. Take that. Take the scissors. Hey, leave it. Just brush it out one more time. Stop, Jersey. Yeah, I'm not gonna cut you. Okay. And then basically I do the same thing for every other paw. All right, same rinse and repeat. And then the last thing I do is I will cut the tail feathers, and she has a very minimal tail. And then you take it, you come around this way, pull it out to here, and then right at the nub of the tail, you just hold your thumb, your finger, so you don't cut the tail, and just cut that right there. Okay, and then it'll usually just flow. Now if you have a long tail, if you do that, this part right here will usually flow, and then you have to just trim in here. So she doesn't have much, so what I'll do is I'll just to get rid of this, clean this up a little bit. Up a little bit. That's all. And then the only other thing I'll do is right around the butt plate here. I'll clean that up a little bit. We'll take this. Let's see here. Let's see if we can get this back here. Here. Oh, no. Put that under. And I will just go one way here. Be very careful, but just want to clean it up a little bit. If you have a lot of tail feathers here, you probably want to cut it up a little bit, but then, put this right there. And that's pretty much it. She doesn't have much here. There's not much to cut there. My older dog, like I said, she has a lot of coat. I gotta trim this back. I gotta trim here. But Jersey she's easy like that. So, which is what we look for. You want easy, especially when you have multiple dogs. So, good girl, Jersey. You look much better. Thanks for watching.